Sorry. Graphing and writing inequalities. Okay. So up until this point, most of what I have given you, actually pretty much all of what I've given you in terms of problems have been equations. And there have been one answer for those equations, with the exception of what? Where did you get two answers?
Oh, the absolute value.
Absolute values, right? Right? But there's always a very concrete number. It's like one answer or two answers, and that's it, right? But life is not always that pretty, right? It's not always that simple. There could be like lots of answers. In fact, there could be an infinite number of answers. For example, how old do you have to be in order to drive in Santa Fe?
13.
Over. Oh, yeah.
15.
13.
Driving with
Carrie, it's like
13.
or older age. Or learning
Gary.
blah, blah, blah.
Is it 15 or is it 15 and a half?
13.
Gary,
13.
it's like you say, there's one concrete
4 years
answer,
old.
Wait,
and then everyone gives all these different answers.
How old is a baby?
Guys, my video is running, just so you guys know. Guys, Rico,
Stop putting
the
holes.
video is running, okay? So yeah, it's like, I don't know what I thought it was 15 and a half. Am I wrong?
Wait,
No, it
people measure birthdays in and
takes half.
I don't think people measure.
Well, that's okay. We'll just say 15. Let's say you can be 15 in order to drive. Is that right? With an adult. But you can still drive, right? Okay. So, if I said X, guys, if I said X is the number, the age you have to be, I could say X is equal to 15. Now, unfortunately, that means somebody who is 16 can't drive.
Oh, that is.
Right? That's a problem. So we've got to figure out a different way to describe this. Yes.
X equals greater than 15.
Ah, okay. So
X equals
X
greater
is
than-
X is greater than 15. That's awesome. That means if I'm 16 I can drive and 17. But if I'm exactly 15, I am not allowed to drive. Right? Ah, but I could put greater than or equal to, right? Right?
Gary, I
Yes.
remember learning this.
Okay, good. So my guess is most of you know some of this that I'm about to go over.
Yeah, equal or greater than.
But I'm going to list it out anyway. So guys, side talking. Okay? But I'm going to suggest, I think it's sometimes useful to write things out. So if I put this, that means greater than. If I put this with a line underneath it, it means greater than or equal to. If I put less than, that sign, it means less than.
Yes, we know that.
And if I do this, it means less than or equal to. So when you have the straight line, that means that's sort of like an equal sign, right? It's half of an equal sign. So the straight line says it can equal it, or it can be less than, right? Or greater than, right? And so the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to give you a very simple equation that we are going to graph. And when you graph this, we've already started graphing on a coordinate plane, right? Am I correct? You guys are all fairly familiar with that right now.
Yeah.
But with those, how many variables were there? There were two variables, right? Y equals 2x plus 3. There were two variables. So it's a two-dimensional graph. You have to have two planes, right? Now, on these, though, here's our first example. X is less than 7. How many unknowns are there? How many variables?
6.
How many variables?
Well, actually,
There's only one variable, right?
Yeah.
X is the variable. There's not an X and a Y. I didn't say Y equals X or Y is less than X minus 7. I said just X is less than 7. So it's a one-dimensional plane, right? There's only one dimension of this. There's not two unknowns. You can graph this on a coordinate plane. Maybe I'll show that to you as well. right now we're just going to focus on a single one-line dimensional plane. Boom. It's like your x-axis. You don't have a y-axis, Logan, right? You don't have a y-axis, you have an x-axis. And let's see, 7. I'm going to say this is 7. I'm going to say this is 0, right? I don't care about putting the lines to get to 7, right? I just want to get a general idea. Now, yes. What would I do?
So what you would do is you would make a circle above the 7 and an arrow going to the left.
All right, now this is a question. When it says, this says less than, is 7 a possible answer?
No, that's what.
No, it says less.
7 is a boundary area, but it doesn't include 7. It goes up to 7, right? And it's all less than 7.
Gary,
So,
it's very literal. If it says less than 7, it's less than 7. It's
correct.
Really, James, I never knew that.
So how, the question, so James is totally right. But the question is, how do I delineate that on a graph? How do I delineate that it says that it does not equal 7, but it's less than 7? Jan?
You put a circle above the 7 and you make an arrow going.
All right, is it a solid circle or a,
It's not filled in.
it's a not filled in, an open circle? So if it is less than, guys, Rico, you guys have to be listening. If it says less than, without an equal sign, it's going to be an open circle. If it said less than or equal to, it's going to be a closed circle. Does that make sense? And the idea is, an open circle, I could do it here. I'll just do it here, on the line. You can do, like Jan said, you could do it up here if you wanted. You could do it up here if you wanted. Okay?
Okay.
But open circle, notice it's circling 7, but it's not touching 7, right? Because it's open. Does that make sense? If I had made a solid dot, it's touching 7. Does that make sense? So that means it would include 7. So, and now I have to move my arrow to the left,
Oh.
right? And so I make a sort of a solid line. Now, if you use Jan's method of doing it above the line, that's totally fine. And you just draw your line. Okay?
Gary.
Yes.
So there's a sign for greater than and less than. There's a sign for greater than, less than, or equal to. But is there a sign for 7 or less, or 7 or more?
Yeah.
That's exactly
To
what
include
it
Greater
is.
than or equal. That's just
That's greater than or equal to less than.
I think I'm going to
Well,
answer that
greater
question in
than
a
is
few minutes.
above it.
No, look, greater, so look,
Yeah,
so
greater
the,
than
the,
is
the
above
greater
7
than sign,
and
the
equal
equal
to
sign under it, so that's the line under it.
Oh,
Greater
yeah,
than or
yeah,
equal to,
yeah,
so that's like.
But I think I understand. You're going one step further,
Yes.
and we are going. I'm going to be talking about that shortly.
Yeah.
So just kind of be patient
Well,
on that. All right. So that's number 1. Number 2. Let's try this.
it's not equal.
X is, guys. X is greater. X is greater than -4. Well, is -4 to the left of 0 or to the right of 0?
Over there.
It's to the left. So I'm going to put my -4 here, and I'm going to put my 0 over here, because 0 is to the right of -4, right?
Over there.
And then it says X is greater than -4. Is it open circle or solid circle?
Open.
It's open circle. So I'm going to do, I kind of like Jan's method, because then I don't have to make this thick line. But you have to understand, you'll sometimes see them like this, with a very thick line. But I like Jan's method better, because it's so quick and easy. I don't have to do a thick line, I can just do that. Open circle is greater than. Now, is everybody listening? As long as X is on the left side. Is X on the left side of this equation?
No.
No.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I mean, you're right, it's no. Is X on the left side of this inequality?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Right. Is that what you meant?
This is left. That is right.
Okay.
X is on the left.
If X is on the left.
I know.
Guys, this is my video. If X is on the left, look at this less than sign. Which direction is that pointing?
That way.
The right.
It's to the left, right?
That way.
Right? Look. So this is sort of like my arrow. Does that make sense? So you can always double check that. You have to have the X on the left. If I had said this though, 7 is greater than X, which is the same thing. right? Those two are identical.
What?
But if I do that, then my arrow doesn't work. Does that make sense? Do you see that?
So it's impossible.
Do you guys see this? Do you see that? All right. So let's try another
But
one.
what if you made it -7? No,
2, 3.
that's the joke.
Let's say we got x is greater than or equal to 140.
All right, Gary,
All right.
we're doing it for a while. Make the chart.
So here's 0. Here's 140. Right? I don't care about putting all the little lines to get to 140. Right? And I know it's greater than or equal to. So what do I put here?
You put
Circle
circle
that's
that's
filled
filled in.
A solid circle that's filled in. In which direction do I go?
That way.
To the right.
Narnia.
That's way.
Right? Okay. Now,
I was right, you was left.
fist to 5. You guys all understand this? Is it really easy?
He says,
Fist to 5, guys? Mushy? I'm asking. Mushy. I'm talking.
Yeah, this
Fist
is
to 5?
super easy.
One.
Fist of 5, I give you like 4.5.
Why,
Alright.
Jay?
So guys,
4.5.
so guys, I'm gonna have to stop you. This is my video, and somehow this is all messed up. You guys hit it again. You gotta tell me if you hit it.
I don't think so.
Stop it.
I didn't write it. Garner.
Alright, so guys, this is my video, right? And this is a little embarrassing. This is going out to the universe, right? There's a lot of talking over here, side talking, and it's really hard to teach. I just want to teach so that I can give you the homework and you can get started and get working on it. So I know you guys know how to do it, okay? So I really want to finish this, and there's still a bunch left to teach. So please try to stay focused. Try not to do the side talking even though you want to, okay? So we have talked about one type of inequality, but there are also things called compound inequalities. And it's more typical of real life in many ways because a lot of times in real life, James sort of hinted at it with one of his questions. Sometimes it's not as straightforward. Sometimes it's, you know, the answer or whatever is you can be older than this, but you got to be younger than that. I mean, you know, if you're 120, you're probably not going to be driving. You know what I mean? Hopefully you're not, right? But there's not a law of that. But there are lots of that. There are lots of examples of laws where there's a minimum and a maximum, right? So sometimes you have what's called a compound inequality. And a compound inequality has 3 sides. Pretty cool, actually. And if you have, if I could say -2, here's our first example. -2 is less than x, which is less than 10. That is a compound inequality. And the way, even though it reads -2 is less than x, which is less than 10, in my brain, I don't read it like that. I start from the x. And even though that is a less than sign, do you agree with me? That's a less than sign? I'm starting from the viewpoint of the x. X is bigger than -2. Do you see what I'm saying? The bigger mouth is facing the x, right? So x is bigger than -2 and less than 10. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So when I draw it on a graph, here's my -2, here's my 10. I just draw it right underneath my compound inequality. I put the -2 under the -2 and the 10
Where's 0?
under the 10. And 0 is somewhere in here, but I'm going to just put my x there instead of a 0.
Oh my God.
Right? And I know there's going to be an open circle here because it does not equal -2. And there's going to be an open circle here because it does not equal 10.
Oh man.
And that's what it'll look like.
The line.
Okay?
It's a face.
All right. Number 2. Let's try another one right here. Let's say I say -16 is less than or equal to x, which is less than 5. So this is my negative 16. This is my 5. This is my x is everything in between. Don't you agree with me?
Yes.
X is bigger than or greater than or less than, greater than or equal to negative 16. Greater than or equal to, so it's going to be a solid circle. And it's less than 5, so it's an open circle. And it's everything in between. Make sense?
Yeah.
All right, we'll do a
I think
few.
I get it.
We'll do. So x is bigger than or equal to negative 16, so it's got to be solid. Right? It's going to be at 16. And then it's less than 5, so it's got to be an open circle because it's less than. Right? It doesn't equal 5. And then it's x is everything in between those two boundaries, right? Okay. All right, let's try one more. And then I think there's, I can't remember what the third thing was. Oh, yes, okay. How about 82 is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to 94. Okay? So I would draw my line. I've got 82 here. I've got 94 here. X is everything in between. What am I going to put here?
Filled in circle.
A filled-in circle, right? Because it's greater than or equal to. So the underlined inequality has a solid dot. Underlined inequality, solid dot again. X is everything in between.
Okay, I kind of get it now.
Does that make sense?
Okay.
82 is less than x. X is all of this above 82, right? So 82 is bigger than x is bigger than or equal to 82, right? But it's less than 94. It's all the stuff in between. Let's do another one. 4. 220 is less than or equal to x, which is less than 221. So this is 220. This is 221. X is everything in between. What do I put here?
3 is solid.
Solid dot? What do I put here?
No, you don't. Put it open.
What do I put here?
Open.
Open circle. And x is everything in between. All right? Pretty straightforward. Now, last thing.
It's only like a 0.5 difference.
Oh.
Fist of 5. Are you guys understanding compound inequalities? Awesome. Great.
Oh. Come on.
So the last thing I want to talk about is what if I gave you a graph and I asked you to write the inequality? Okay?
What?
All right, if I gave you a graph. So,
How?
so now I'm talking about, guys, what we did so far was we were graphing inequalities. That's what we just did in those two things. We graphed a simple inequality and we graphed a compound inequality. Now we're going to talk about writing an inequality from a graph, okay? So you kind of have to get used to this. So if I gave you a graph, and here's negative 5,
We're writing an
Writing an
equality.
inequality?
Yeah.
write an inequality. Oops. Thank you. Writing an inequality, and this is 7, and this is an open, and this is solid, and it's like that. What would be the equation? Jan?
Negative 5 is less than x is less than and equal to 7.
All right. So really, with the compound inequalities, they're really pretty easy. It's almost exactly what you see here, right? The only thing is I didn't put the x here, right? But if I had, then I just bring the negative 5 down, the 7 down, x is in the middle, and it's always going to be this, right? It's always either going to be less than or equal to. Because x is bigger than this, right? And it's always going to be less than or equal to here in the way this is drawn. Okay, that was number one.
Wait, Gary, how can you tell that the open circle above the -5 is negative? What if it's positive?
Guys. Say it again.
How would you tell that that open circle is negative and not positive?
Because it says negative.
Oh,
It says negative, it's at -5. Therefore, right? So it's marking,
Negative.
right? Does it make sense? All right. What if I gave you this? All right. What do? X is less than. What do I do?
Oh, I know.
X is less than -17. What do I do?
Well, is there a left side then? Is there only a right side?
This is a simple, this is the first ones I showed you.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Okay,
All right, Luke.
so you do x is 0, but further on off to the right,
Here's 0.
because and then 17 is there, and then you do an empty dot on top of both of them and write an arrow.
On top of both of them?
What? No,
No.
top of the zero.
On top of -17. And then Luke, then,
Make an empty thingy and then draw an arrow.
okay.
But with
No, Gary. Bad
He
Gary.
said draw an arrow.
The other way. That's facing the.
where?
No.
Bad girl.
All right, here we go. Like that?
Yeah.
Okay, you're right. Okay, good. All right, here's another one. Oh, wait, what am I doing? Yeah, that's what I'm doing. All right. Somebody else. Okay, Lucas.
So I'm pretty sure that would be -25 is less than x, which is less than -17.
Yeah, that's
That is
correct.
correct. Good
I
job.
want to try.
Okay. 4. X is greater than or equal to 25. Wait, what am I doing?
What are you doing?
I forgot what I was doing.
Gary.
I'm going backwards. Okay. So here we go.
How do you say that word?
Okay, there we go. James. So this is not a compound. This is more like one of these.
Is it just?
So you know it's
Wait,
going to...
it's the div with the line under it. I mean,
Yes.
and it says at X is at the beginning.
And
so-
which direction do you have the... Is it...
Right.
X is greater than.
X is
Taking off my pen. Here, I can.
X is greater than or less to 88.
Greater than or equal to.
Equal to, my bad. Equal to 88.
Right.
Greater than or less than.
I'm sorry, I meant to say equal to.
Greater than or equal to. Okay. Fist to 5.
Wait, is there such a
Fist to
thing as
5,
greater
guys.
than or
Fist to
less
5.
than?
Awesome. Okay, good. I'm going to just stop this.